discernment for me is basically sifting through the movements of the Spirit within oneself. Those that are drawing us to God and those that draw us away from God. So it's a kind of a daily process, it's an everyday process, but it is a process that can help us lead to decisions, big decisions.
It's very trendy word. People are using it in a different context and different situation. However, quite often simply wrong. Discernment is a process. It is a process of listening. Listening not only to God, but listening to yourself and listening to others.
It's trying to weigh one way or the other. What would God want me or us to do here in this situation?
I have looked through some Old Testament and New Testament references for it, and it made me really amazed to find out how many times God has spoken to the people, and they have been called to discern the Spirit, to discern God's will. Just to name two, maybe from the first letter of St. John. Dear friends, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God, because many false prophets have gone out into the world. So, very clear call. Discern, find the Spirit, find what God is saying, find within yourself and listen to others before you come to any conclusion. Or letter of St. James. If any of you lack wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. And there are many other references. Going back to the Gospel and listening what God is saying through His own word, through the spirits that are within me, and through the other people.
Well, discernment, the need for discernment, if I could change the question around a bit, comes from the fact that we have scriptures. We've got 4 Gospels, we've got 27 writings of the New Testament, and the writings of the Old Testament, which inform all of that. Don't answer every question that will be ever asked of human beings in Christian communities in the life of the church. Jesus says, I am going to leave you one who will enable you to face the new questions and the new context, and enable you to understand what I said, what I did, as we see in the Gospels and so on, and try to understand that and apply it to new questions and new contexts and new challenges. So the origins of discernment is that Jesus doesn't give us a game plan for 2,000 years of history or 3,000 years of history, but He's given us the Holy Spirit.
So I see discernment clearly in the Gospels, and the most vivid one for me is the Annunciation, where we see Mary, a woman of prayer, and prayer is the first disposition for discernment. She's praying, and then she gets this message, and noticing what's within her, she's disturbed by what she hears. So she gets this message, fear not. Then she asks more questions, and then she gets clarity, and then she comes to the yes. So that's generally the pattern of discernment. We also see Jesus in the garden. In Gethsemane, he's praying again, and he's saying, no, take this away, I can't cope with this. But then with the prayer, he's able to come to a sense of peace and say, okay, not my will, but your will be done. And it's exactly what discernment is about. It's about finding God's will as best we can. It's also, there's another interesting little story too about the rich young man. It says he went away sad. If he was a discerning person, he would be asking himself, what is this sadness? Where does it come from? And who knows where it might have led? We don't know the end of that story. Yeah, so that they are there. And also the other big tradition for myself as a Jesuit is Ignatius Loyola. When Ignatius was recovering from a broken leg after the battle, he had plenty of time to think back over his life. And he was remembering incidents in his life, and he noticed that some things left him dry and discontented, but other things left him consoled, and they gave him some joy. And he began to notice a difference between the two. Those that left him dry and discontented were not from God, but the others were. So he then began to pay more attention to the things that were of God and learned to distinguish between the two. And so this is what discernment is about distinguishing between those things that lead us in one direction and those that lead in another.
Well, discernment is trying to see the whole and to see kind of in general, choosing between directions, and often that's between, well, this one would lead to a good end and that would lead to a good end, and then you decide, no, this way is better. Decision making really gets down to the more concrete things, how can we achieve this? And so yes, we'll do this, we'll do that, we'll make a decision not to do that, because a decision to go one way is always a decision not to focus on something. Decision making is a more precise and more concrete step towards achieving that which discernment has revealed as God's way forward.
Well, discernment, the big difference is it's done in prayer. But that's not to say that other decisions can be made in prayer, but generally speaking, it's the context that gets the prayer. And usually those decisions, the bigger decisions like, should I get married, should I end a religious life, should I take on this particular career path or another, there where you can make the bigger decisions and where we use discernment for that sort of thing. But as I say, the little decisions, like when we get up each morning, every day we make lots of decisions. We don't even think about them. They're routine. That's decision making for me. Yeah. But discernment is really looking for the will of God in what I'm trying to figure out. Yeah.
Well, I believe that discernment is much more than the decision making. Even both somehow might lead to the same conclusion, if you like, or to some decisions at the end. We are not looking as the decision-making process would require into pro and cons, weighting them and then making this decision. In the process of discernment, we still look at them, but overarching question that we are trying to answer is, what is God saying through all pro and cons? What is God saying through the context within which we are trying to make our decision? What is God saying to me personally or to the group, wherever discernment is being taken place, and what is His will in this particular context?